Hi, my name is Kelly Prue. I am a civil engineer at Martin Martin Inc. Martin Martin is a mid-sized civil and structural engineering firm that's headquartered out of Lakewood, Colorado. Right now we have 7 offices nationwide. I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about what I do in case it's something you want to do too. As I mentioned, I'm a civil engineer. I'm actually a licensed professional civil engineer in the state of Colorado. What that means is I've passed my professional engineering or my PE exam to be able to practice in the state of Colorado. It's similar to a lawyer passing the bar exam to be able to practice. This is what I've passed to be able to have a stamp that I can use to put on drawings that are going out for construction to say that they were actually certified under my direct supervision and that I'm allowed to do that in the state of Colorado. A little bit about the background and what got me here. I graduated high school and I went to school at CSU and studied civil engineering. I actually started out at the very beginning as an undeclared major and then switched into civil engineering after my first semester. And that's because my grades were not quite good enough coming out of high school to get into the engineering program right away. Luckily, I was able to pull good enough grades that they let me transfer in after my first semester and then continue on with that and making sure I was pulling good grades throughout the rest of my academic career at CSU. But it's something I wanted to stop and point out to you guys real quick is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do a particular degree or particular major if you can't get into it right away. A lot of universities will let you go in undeclared and then switch later if you work hard and if you're able to pull those grades. So don't think that necessarily anything is off the table for you at this point because it wasn't for me. I went through the rest of my schooling and graduated 7 years ago from CSU with my civil engineering degree. And at that time, I took what's called my FE exam, which is my Fundamentals of Engineering exam. It's a big test you take at the end of your schooling that just kind of covers everything you've done over the last 4 years and lets you get your Fundamentals of Engineering license in the state of Colorado. Our company, Martin Martin, actually requires that you have that for us to bring you in as an entry-level engineer. At that point, the state of Colorado requires that you work under a professional engineer for 4 years before you can apply for your own PE license. So I worked for 4 years and I sat for that test. And again, it's another 8-hour exam that you take. And it's what actually gets you licensed in the state of Colorado. So luckily I passed that and was able to get licensed a few years ago. So that's a little bit about the background and the education requirements to get where I am. I'll give you guys a little bit of information now as well about what you can actually do as a civil engineer. Some of the people I graduated school with went and worked for a construction company. So they're field engineers and they actually work out on site during construction and help with the actual design that's going on out there on the site. At Martin Martin, we actually do the design side of things versus the construction side. And we have a couple different departments within Martin Martin as well. We have a bridge group that does a lot of retrofit for existing bridges and new design for proposed bridges as well. We have a transportation department that works on all of our major roadway design. So there's a lot that actually goes into roadway design that I learned about in school. There's specific radiuses that you can have on the road. You have to certain lengths of turn lanes at intersections. There's specific plantings you can or cannot have next to the roadways to make sure that you have adequate sight distance either way when you're making turns. So we have an entire department that works on that design and major roadway design within our company. I work on a team that's called Site Solutions. So what I do with that is site development. Anytime there is new construction or even retrofit to existing construction, I'm going to work on the design that goes outside of the building. So I work on all the grading that makes sure the sidewalks come up to the front entry of the building. And within that, I have to be constrained by ADA code. So there's a lot of requirements about how much I can slope sidewalks, how long I can slope them, where we can put stairs versus ramps. So I work with the landscape architect to make sure that we have all that design adequately pulled together. I also do all of the drainage and detention for the site. So I make sure when it rains that your buildings aren't flooding and that all of that water has somewhere to go. In Colorado, it's a little interesting because we have Colorado water law, which doesn't allow us to just dig a big hole on the site and put the water there when it rains. We actually have to release our water from our site at historic rates because people downstream of us have legal rights to that water. We're basically at the top elevation-wise, so all of our water trickles down from there and heads out to different states, and we can't just hoard that water and keep it from them. We have to prove that we're actually releasing that water back to those people at whatever was happening before we developed the site. So it gets a little trickier in Colorado than some other states to do our design. I also do utility design. So anytime you turn on the faucet and water comes out, I helped do the design of that water line coming up to the building, making sure there's adequate pressure, making sure it's a large enough size line to actually bring in that amount of water that you need. I also work on sanitary sewer design. So anytime you flush the toilet and the water goes away, I make sure that those lines also have adequate capacity to make sure that nothing is getting caught back at the house or the building. So I always say that civil engineers are the people you don't know exist until there's a problem. So as long as we're doing our design right, it's usually not something you ever think twice about having happen. And I really enjoy what I do. I think it's fun because every site is different. So I'm not doing the same design over and over. There are different grading requirements for every site and different demands on the building that make what I do new and exciting every day. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. I don't have a lot of photos I can show you guys from the projects I've worked on because I do a lot of work on campuses that have security requirements. So I do a lot of work for Lockheed Martin and for NRail and for NIST. And they don't necessarily like when we share all their information, but I can tell you that I also worked on the CSU multi-purpose stadium, which you can see as part of my background here was a photo they took inside that locker room. And this was one of my favorite projects I've worked on because like I said, I went to CSU and it was just so amazing to go back there and to stand in the middle of this site and look around and know that I designed this, that it was something that was once just lines on a piece of paper and now it's come to life. I think that's one of the best things about engineering in general is getting to stand out in the middle of a site and know that you drew this and now it's part of this actual infrastructure that you can walk around. So I've always loved that and think that's a really great part of being an engineer. So that's a little bit of background on me and what I do as an engineer. Hopefully you guys learned a little something today and I wish you best of luck on the rest of your academic career.